Welcome to the Alfred Street Baptist Church. Now, here are the upcoming announcements for this week.
We know that these are difficult and challenging times. We invite you to stay connected by participating in our online worship services and remain faithful in your giving online via our Alfred Street website, ASBC app, and on our text messaging system. If you have any questions about giving, please feel free to email our finance department at finance@alfredstreet.org. If you're interested in becoming a member of the historic Alfred Street Baptist Church, please email deacons with an S at alfredstreet.org or complete the membership form on our website or on our ASBC app.
Are you looking for an incredible opportunity to share your musical talents? If so, look no further. Alfred Street Sanctified Symphony Orchestra is thrilled to announce that they are recruiting talented musicians like you to join their harmonious family. They're calling for all musicians to join them every Friday evening from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Send an email to sanctifiedsymphony@alfredstreet.org if interested. They can't wait to welcome you into the Alfred Street Baptist Church Sanctified Symphony Orchestra.
Hey Alfred Street, Versus is back in stock. Our Versus team has been working around the clock to create another batch of our popular Versus Bible-based trivia card game, and they're now available for purchase. That's right, purchase your set of Versus cards today before we sell out again. Visit our website or ASBC app and be the first to get your hands on Versus, a Bible-based trivia game by Alfred Street Baptist Church.
God has great plans for Alfred Street Baptist Church in 2024. We encourage each of you to make a contribution online above and beyond your regular tithes and offering by no later than Sunday, December 31st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's right. In order for your tax-deductible contributions or donations to be included in our Finance Department's 2023 Tax Charitable Contribution Report, one must do the following. Make your donation or contribution online at alfredstreet.org or via our ASBC app or text to give system or our Realm membership giving system by no later than 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, December 31st, 2023. Or you can mail your check or money order to the church directly using our office address, 325 South Patrick Street, Alexandria, Virginia, 22314. All mail donations or contributions must be postmarked by no later than Sunday, December 31st, 2023. Any donations or contributions received on or after January 1st, 2024, regardless if it's online, via the U.S. mail, or during in-person worship experience, will be counted as a 2024 donation, regardless of what date has been placed on your check or money order. Please note that a 2023 date on a check or money order does not make it a 2023 donation. Only checks or money orders mailed to the church directly and postmarked by no later than Sunday, December 31st, 2023, will be counted in our 2023 Tax Charitable Contribution Report. Please email finance@alfredstreet.org with any questions or concerns regarding your end-of-year giving. Alfred Street thanks you in advance for your unwavering support and generosity. Alfred Street family and friends, get ready. Seek 2024 is coming. That's right. Beginning January 22nd through February 11th, our own Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley will lead Alfred Street in our annual church-wide corporate fast known as Seek 2024. Seek is a 21-day spiritual fast providing guidance to Christians from all around the world on how to practice self-discipline and to focus their entire attention on God. Again, Seek 2024 will commence on Monday, January 22nd and will end on Saturday, February 11th. Please note that our online registration for Seek will open on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. During this time, participants will be able to choose a physical, social, technological, and/or financial fast. Everyone will have an opportunity to participate in our daily prayers, which will commence on the morning of January 22nd. A devotional journal filled with thought-provoking passages related to Scripture will also be available for download from the ASBC website once Seek 2024 begins. Pastor Wesley will curate a special Seek 2024 music playlist, which will be available to download from our website. And new for 2024, we'll be introducing an exercise component, a prayer walk every Saturday morning at 8 a.m., crossing the Woodrow Wilson Bridge in Alexandria, Virginia. Last year, Seek 2023 attracted nearly 12,000 participants. Remember, everyone who would like to participate in Seek 2024 must register online when registration opens on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. We look forward to connecting with you all through our Seek 2024 fast. On Sunday, December 31st, please join us on New Year's Eve for one of our regular worship experiences at either 8 a.m. or 11 a.m. We invite everyone to join us on Sunday, December 31st, New Year's Eve, for our in-person and live-streamed worship experience starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Doors will open at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. On Monday, January 1st, 2024, New Year's Day, please note that there will be no in-person worship experience. Alfred Street family and friends, we invite you to save the date. Everyone mark your calendars now and make plans to join us in person here at Alfred Street Baptist Church for Seminary Saturdays, happening online and in person every Saturday throughout the month of January in 2024 from 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. noon. Seminary Saturdays are Alfred Street's dynamic weekly Bible study series featuring a different and amazing guest scholar each Saturday who will deliver an insightful and informative lecture. You don't want to miss it. Alfred Street's Office of Christian Care and Counseling, in conjunction with the Health and Well-Being Recovery Ministry, present a bi-weekly peer support session virtually via Zoom. That's every first and third Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Visit our website for the Zoom link information. The Recovery Ministry peer support sessions will provide a safe and confidential environment to confront addictions, compulsive behaviors, and issues that interfere with a renewed relationship with God. Email recovery@alfredstreet.org for details. Calling all parents and guardians of children, youth, and teens. Alfred Street's Children and Youth Ministries are back. We're currently accepting registrations for Kid Street, Crossover, and Higher Ground. Visit our website to register your child or youth today. Alfred Street invites everyone to join the Joyce K. Peterson Handbell Ringers. They are thrilled to announce that their ensemble recruitment is now open. If you have a passion for music and a heart for worship, we invite you to be a part of this harmonious journey. If you can read music and are eager to contribute your talents to a musical ministry that touches souls, this is your moment to shine. For more info and to express your interest, please email handbell@alfredstreet.org. Alfred Street's Office of Christian Care and Counseling, in conjunction with our Divorce Care Ministry, present their fall sessions virtually every Thursday, starting at 12 p.m. noon through 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. These sessions will continue through December 21st. Email divorcecare@alfredstreet.org.
Our Faye Savage Gun Tutorial Ministry has a new home online. Communicate, learn, and stay informed all in one place. Visit our new webpage and check us out today at alfredstreet.org. Email tutorial@alfredstreet.org for details.
Our Office of Christian Care and Counseling presents our hybrid, the Chronic Pain Support Group, facilitated by Mr. Jorge, Walace. This is a weekly support group designed to aid in the recovery needed from the emotional and spiritual debilitation of chronic pain and chronic illness. Recovery is defined as the ability to live peacefully, joyfully, and comfortably with ourselves and others. Chronic Pain Anonymous is a worldwide fellowship of individuals that understand the isolation, fear, and despair many have experienced when living with unpredictable and life-changing chronic illness and chronic pain. This support group will occur every Wednesday through December 20th. Email pastoralcounseling@alfredstreet.org for details. Our ASBC Village Study Guide is now available on the website to download. Be sure to check out a copy if you want to go deeper with Pastor Wesley's sermon prepared for you by the Villages of Alfred Street team. The guide is available online at alfredstreet.org. We invite everyone to join us for daily prayer call at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. Join us in prayer and praise Monday through Friday only by dialing 425-436-6277, access code 246114 #. Again, that's 425-436-6277, access code 246114 #. Our new prayer line number will accommodate up to 2,000 participants. However, once we reach capacity, we will continue to offer the playback option. Call our playback number anytime after 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time each day, Monday through Friday, and you'll be able to replay the prayer call that you missed. To reach the playback line, please dial 425-436-6278 and enter the access code 246114#. Please note that this is not a toll-free number, and therefore, depending on your phone carrier, rates may apply. Hey, Alfred Street family and friends. Are you visiting us for the very first time? Or perhaps you're new to Alfred Street and you want to stay connected to us or receive the latest Alfred Street updates via text. If so, all visitors, text the word visitors with an S to our new direct text number, 571-977-4525. That's 571-977-4525.
Also, we invite you to tune in to our Faith Forward weekly radio broadcast featuring Pastor Howard John Wesley every Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Magic 102.3 FM and 92.7 FM for a powerful sermon that will move you forward in your faith.
For more information on these and all the exciting events taking place here at Alfred Street, please log on to alfredstreet.org.
Welcome to our final episode of Mental Health in the Sacred Sanctuary. Can you believe it? We've come all the way down to December. And for this month, what we've decided to do is re-air a series that was so popular. So we're returning it by popular demand, Mental Stamina. Mental Stamina is going to be a 4-part series, and it was recorded this summer by our senior clinician, Mr. Jorge, Walace. So you will get to reimagine, re-invite, reconnect, and rejoin this particular series with Jorge and all 4 episodes for the month of December. We're doing this strategically because guess what? Alfred Street is getting ready for Seek 2024. So as we prepare to figure out what we're seeking God for and incorporate the personal work that we need to do, we are inviting you to join us in this journey again. So this time around, we're asking that you get your journals, that you're getting your pens, and that you will walk through these series of episodes with Jorge as you reboot your mental stamina and get ready for Seek. We have had an amazing year, and that is thanks to you. As I look back over the year, we've brought you 19 amazing episodes this year. They'll all be updated to our playlist, so we invite you to go back, pick the topic that resonates with you, journey through it, and we'll be back. I promise we'll be back in February 2024 with brand new episodes of Mental Health in the Sacred Sanctuary. Remember, you are the sacred sanctuary that our amazing God dwells in, and from head to toe, everything in between matters to our God. Thank you for joining us for Mental Health in the Sacred Sanctuary this year, and we will see you in 2024. So before we go, I'd like to introduce the team, starting with Mr. Jorge Walace, our senior clinician, licensed professional counselor. Next, we have Ms. Michelle Johnson. She is our certified parent coach. To my left, Ms. LaTanya Taylor, all things admin extraordinaire. And last but not least, and newest to the team, Ms. Tiffany Majette, our marriage and family therapist. We wish you a Merry Christmas. They're gonna edit it. Let's try that again. We wish you a Merry Christmas.
You can't stop because they can edit it.
From the L's at Santa Workshop. We can't. All right. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from the Office of Christian Care and Counseling.
Greetings. My name is Jorge Walace. I am 1/4 of the team in the Office of Christian Care and Counseling. I am so grateful for this opportunity just to present what I think is a topic that we all need, but is often not talked about, and that simply is mental stamina. Some might say, well, what is that? Well, physical stamina is the ability, it involves endurance, not necessarily strength, but just how long can you perform at a high level. Same thing with our thinking or with our mentality. How do we increase our ability to, let's say, solve complex problems? How do we increase our ability to be resilient when we have setbacks and disappointments? So we'll talk about that throughout this series. This is one of the things, this mental stamina is something that is very dear to me. And I say that because it's a program that I worked on previously in trying to encourage, our younger people to develop mental stamina that they were going to need as they entered into college and off into the career world. Stamina, like I said before, is not always related to physical strength and endurance. Solving a difficult puzzle or a complex problem, again, is an example of mental stamina. If you had a really tough year, but are doing generally fine, some might say that you have emotional stamina. It can also mean perseverance. I found this analogy while I was doing the research here, and I thought it fit perfectly, for what we're talking about. The cheetah. On the African plains, it survives by running down its prey. This big cat can sprint up to 70 miles an hour, but it cannot sustain that pace for long. So with its long, sleek, disproportionately fast skills that it possesses, it has a small heart, which causes the cheetah to tire out quickly. Unless the cheetah catches its prey in the first flurry, it must abandon the chase. So every missed kill is a significant amount of wasted energy. How many of us feel like cheetahs? We start out strong. We're excited about, a new job, a new relationship, a new church, right? But we're forced to stop, or we're forced to scale back due to emotional, physical, and mental fatigue. So again, what I wanted to talk about tonight, in increasing our mental stamina, are what are the markers that we can look for that say, I have mental stamina, right? So the first one, with these 4 emotional markers of mental stamina, the first one is emotional flexibility. Essentially, what that means is it's your ability to handle different situations in a balanced or non-defensive manner. It also speaks to the skill of drawing on a wide range of emotions. Some might say there's a word we call buoyancy. When it was first introduced to me, I knew what a buoy was, but I did not quite understand how it fit in my mental stamina. Well, just like a buoy, we'll sit there and it will bob in the water, and then a boat will pass and it'll dip, but it comes back up. So I was told it's important for us to develop some buoyancy, because in life, we're going to have those times where we may be fine. We're just bobbing along, and then something comes and we dip down. But that resiliency to come back, or that ability to be flexible and allow some things to happen, and we don't have to be moved by our emotions when everything seems to be going on. In today's times, it's important that we develop, this fact of having some type of mental stamina. A lot of us, and myself included, Sundays are special to me. It's the one time I feel like I can breathe, right? It's the one place that I could go and I don't really feel like, when I come to church, there's not demands and things of that nature. And I see that, in my own walk sometimes with when things come or when I take on other people's stuff, how, it can hinder my own ability to be flexible emotionally. We all know that one person that's always hard, or they stay angry. We might know that person is always happy. But that's an example of people, sometimes we could get rigid in our emotions as well. So emotional flexibility is important. The second emotional marker is emotional responsiveness. To put it simply, and ladies, you'll know this when I say it, you want somebody to be emotionally available. And that's, emotional responsivity. It's a lot of syllables. It's just the ability to acknowledge, an effective stimuli by exhibiting some kind of emotion. So something happens and I just don't do nothing. It's like, well, nothing makes you mad, nothing makes you, happy, nothing makes you whatever. But this responsiveness, the skill of it is increased, by just practicing the ability to be emotionally available to the people within your sphere. A lot of times, when I'm counseling people, they see the world, and their relationship to it as this battle. And what happens is the people that are closest to them in that sphere, sometimes they can get skipped over because they got this battle going on, with the world. And individuals, can lack some emotional responsiveness. If you know someone that's like, all right, when I get home, I don't want to hear nothing, don't call me with nothing. Sometimes those people lack emotional responsiveness. Or what I've also seen is individuals that, may exhibit the emotion of being angry, but they don't have, the different emotions that come between it. So they're either mad or I'm all right. So, trying to develop those emotions and increase that emotional and mental stamina, as things come against us. We do not live on this homeostatic straight line where everything is balanced and, everything is good. We actually live more like an EKG, right? The beautiful thing about it is whether we're ascending or descending, we intersect that line of homeostasis. So we intersect that line of balance where we feel connected to the world. We feel, at peace with ourselves. And once we master the ability of, we're on that line and stress level goes up a little bit, anxiety increases, but then things tend to wane and we can come back down and we intersect that line. The beautiful thing about it is that each intersection is not time bound. It could be 1 day, 1 month, or 1 year. As we're there, certain other things may happen to bring us down a little bit, but then, those things lessen up and we start to ascend and we intersect that line again. So with all of that, it's just the practice of allowing yourself, to be resilient, to have some responsiveness or some emotional responsiveness so you can engage while you're experiencing these ebbs and flows of emotions and ebbs and flows of life. The third emotional marker is emotional strength. Now, you can create your own definition for this one. But it really is, it's just the ability to handle great emotional force. But not only that, but to sustain a fighting spirit, no matter the circumstances. So it's like, I can be strong, but I got hope. And it's only through practice that we develop these things. So it's not like I can't sit at home and think it up, and all of a sudden I got this mental stamina. No, we live life, as life comes, and we just have to lean back and, well, not lean back, but we practice, these different skills that we can develop instead of just, I'll say this. How many of us think about how we're thinking? We just think. And if you anything like me, if I think it, then that means I'm right. And then my ego, because I'm right, will have me moving out and behaving based on the fact that I thought it, I'm right, and I'm going to do what I think is right. Now, it can all be in response to some type of negative stimuli or even positive stimuli. However, many times I've been wrong and have moved out on a faulty assumption because I wasn't right just because I thought of it. My mentor tells me all the time that my mind is not my friend. And the older I get, I'm starting to believe that. But with emotional strength, with emotional responsiveness, and with emotional flexibility, you start to create this ability to, we deal with circumstances as they come. Even though, I'll share this today. This young lady named Nikki McCrae. Nikki played for Collierville High School in Shelby County in Memphis, where I'm from in Memphis. Nikki went on to play at the University of Tennessee under Pat Summitt. She played on the U.S. women's Olympic teams. She played in the WNBA for a while. She coached at, South Carolina University, I believe. Well, Nikki passed away today. 51 years old, passed away from breast cancer. And I found that out, I don't know, an hour ago, and Nikki was 2 years younger than me, but our high schools would play each other. And I would get in trouble because we were supposed to go in at halftime of the girls' game, get dressed, get ready for your game, get mentally prepared, all that stuff. But when we played, Collierville, I would want to watch Nikki play, and I would get in trouble, right? So I say all that to share this. I had to practice what I preached to come in here and to try to offer the best I can with this information, even with, my heart being a little heavy because of Nikki's past. But those are examples of, flexibility, having to practice some emotional flexibility, as well as responsiveness. And I think it's fine for us. I wish we would get better at saying, when it hurt, tell somebody it hurt. It's only through those practices of, being honest with ourselves and with others, especially when our emotions are concerned. I counsel many a couple, and a lot of arguments could have been resolved if individuals would just communicate it. Hey, you said this, that made me feel this way, and they can go in and provide some clarity for both of them and find resolution. Anyhow, thank you all for listening to that part. I'm glad that I was able to get through it. Nikki was very special, so the next marker in our series of emotional markers is, I wanted to talk a little about what emotionally strong people might look like, what you may see in yourself. Emotionally strong people they're less discouraged by setbacks and disappointments. They have a certain level of acceptance. I talk often about, acceptance is one of those things that you don't necessarily arrive at. It's not like, okay, I didn't have it today, but I got it, I'll have it tomorrow. It's really one of those things that we have to practice. And sometimes the only way that we can practice it is the stuff has to come. But emotionally strong people typically are less discouraged by setbacks and disappointments. Emotionally strong people are more adaptable to change. How many of us know people that, they want everything to be the exact same way every morning, every afternoon, when I get in at the night? I grew up in a house like that. Things had to be in certain places, and people were less adaptable to change. So when something would happen, it would trigger that emotional response, and now the whole house on fire, so to speak, because somebody moved a remote, right? So emotionally strong people, again, are less discouraged by setbacks and disappointments, are more adaptable to change. Emotionally strong people are able to recognize and express their needs. You would be surprised how many people lack the ability simply just to express what they need. Better yet, recognize what they need. I've been in conversations before, and I've asked individuals, well, what do you need right now? No answer, So the next time, you may find it in yourself or you may see it in someone else. Remember, take time to stop and think about and recognize what is it that you need in this moment. You may need, distance. You may need touch. You may need, water, food, whatever the case may be. Slow down and recognize and identify what exactly is it that I need at this moment. Emotionally strong people, they focus on getting around a hurdle rather than on the hurdle itself. That's a tough one for me. Even being a fixer, right? You bring me a problem, I want to fix it. So I focus on the problem, right? But emotionally strong people, the ones in my life, and they showed me this, they focus on getting around the hurdle rather than the hurdle. So they're focusing on solutions. I'm still talking about the problem, But hey, it gives me opportunity to practice. You may find it even sometimes with yourself that we can get stuck on the problem and how bad it was. I don't need this to happen right now. I wish this hadn't happened. Or what I'm going to do. It's important as we grow into emotionally strong people, to recognize and to focus on, what are the solutions? What's another way I can look at this? There's a term that's used in the mental health field called cognitive distortions. We all got them, right? It's just like it sounds. There's a distortion in how I'm thinking. One of the main culprits, or something that we all most familiar have, is jumping to conclusions. Cognitive distortion. We come to a conclusion about a fact or an event without all of the necessary information needed to make a decision on the conclusion. All right? Jumping to conclusions is so common that it has an A and B clause. A being fortune telling. Well, this happened, so I know this gonna be like this. Or that happened. Well, hey, you know what I tell you. So fortune telling, and then the second is one of my favorites. It's called mind reading. They must think or I walk in a room and everybody turn and look and then nobody speaks and now I'm in my head talking about what they thinking. So these are those traps that can prevent us from becoming emotionally strong people. If we find ourselves catastrophizing, so everything's bad. This happens, so this is going to turn out bad, right? Or we can overgeneralize, all of them, or those people. We can start to overgeneralize. And again, this is just how we process the information that we receive and how we communicate it to others. There's also another good one that I fall prey to sometimes, and that is all or nothing thinking. If I'm baking a cake and, it doesn't come out right, it doesn't mean it. Or it's still a cake, right? But maybe each layer is not as circular and perfect as I want it to be. I'll just throw the cake away and start over because I want it to be, I want it to be a certain way. So it's that all or nothing thinking that, if you've ever tried to gain weight, lose weight, stay the weight you are, you may have experienced this where, okay, I did good these 5-6 days, but that 7th day I tripped and I ate something I shouldn't have eaten. Well, later for that diet, I'm just going to go back to doing what I was doing. I knew I couldn't do it, no way. And we can start that cycle of negative thinking. And I promise you, they're just trap doors. The mind is insatiable. Our ability to think and our ability to create, and dream, and I'm searching for the word, but it didn't come yet. But our ability, we have these imaginations. That's the word I was looking for. We have these giant imaginations, and it's insatiable, So when we get on a negative cycle where, we start thinking negatively, we need something to supplant that thought, right? There's also an issue that I sometimes fall prey to, and that's simply, it's the inability to sometimes experience a stimuli, or something happens, and then now, my frustration is not only because something happens, but it's another thing on my plate, and then now it brings back all of the other things that may be on my plate. And now I get into the cycle of how am I going to do all this, right? If you notice, and this is for my people pleasers out there, when somebody asks you a question, there will be a swell of energy that arises in you. If you just take the time to notice it, you'll see. It's either going to be positive or negative, but there'll be a swell of energy in you. And for some, when I'm asked to do something I don't want to do, that energy comes up and I say yes because I want that energy to go away. As soon as I say yes, it goes. And then later on, what happens is now I start to engage my rational thinking. And the first thing I say is, why I say I was going to do that? I don't know how I'm going to get all this stuff done. What I'm going to do. Right? So, and like I said, these are just things that as you go about your day, as you're interacting with people, just pay attention to how you're thinking and what you're saying and how you're talking. So, where are we at here? Emotionally strong people, they can learn from mistakes and criticisms. That's a tough one sometimes. Who don't want to be right? We all sometimes want to be right. So when we have those incidents where we make a mistake or we leave ourselves open for criticism, right? Even if it's instructive, just having the ability to accept what people are saying. My grandmama used to say, it's always a little truth and a lie. So, being able to accept those things, and not be, I'll say this, I used to be, if you said something about me, I want to fight. Because that meant you want to fight. Because you said something about me, right? And I had to grow out of that. And be able, especially playing a sport, be able to take instructions from a coach without being defensive because, I made a mistake and now I may be being criticized and now I'm no good the rest of the game. But like I said, growing up and then, having an opportunity to study things like this in school and having plenty of opportunity to practice them in my life. We don't seek perfection. We seek progression. We seek to get just a little bit better. We know better, we do better. We know better, we sometimes don't always do better. But hey, we make an attempt to do it right. So just learning from our mistakes in life and being open-minded to criticism. Emotionally strong people, they tend to see the larger perspective in a challenging situation. I like to look at it in the sense of being able to look at all sides, of a problem instead of, this thing right here is going to happen. And now that's going to destroy everything that we're trying to do on this end. I shared with someone recently that, sometimes the definition changes for me of a journey. It was shared with me once that a journey is simply just the distance traveled in one day. A lot of times for me, I can, look at, in attempts to look at the larger perspective of a challenging situation, I'll forget those markers in the middle that I need to achieve. So I can't go from A to Z. I have to go from A to B, from B to C, from C to D. If I keep going, I'm gonna mess up, so I'm gonna stop right there. But being able to compartmentalize in a way where, yes, I'm taking a look at this larger perspective, but I'm also looking at the ways in which that I can, put things in place so that I can get and reach this achievable goal. Lastly here, emotionally strong people are able to recover more quickly from emotional wounds, such as failure or rejection. Those are two words that in my life, have, I won't say been a constant, but they've definitely been around. But being able to recover takes me back to the thought about buoyancy, because failure can be one of those moments where your buoy dips a little bit, right? Rejection may be one of those moments where your buoy drips, right? If you've ever applied for a job that you really wanted and you didn't get it, or you like that girl, or you like that boy, you like that man, that woman, they weren't necessarily interested, we can feel rejected. Rejection is one of those things that, on the surface, we can go one of two ways. Either I can get mad or I can get sad, right? Neither one of those deals with it. So that ability to recover quickly, to back to whatever your line of homeostasis is, whatever line that your balance is. It's not going to be the same for everybody. So what may be the balance for my mother and my sisters might be different for, let's say, my son and my brothers. Being able to find your own, what makes you emotionally balanced, and being balanced, kind of going back to that idea of living like an EKG, being balanced, we get the opportunity to practice resiliency, flexibility, strength, all those things come into play as we're ascending and descending these lines and intersecting that line of homeostasis throughout life. We never know what tomorrow is going to bring, but the beauty of it is that we get a tomorrow. And with a different mindset, we might be able to enjoy it just a little differently than we did the day before. I realized something recently that in my conversation, and I want y'all to do this too. Just pay attention to the conversations that you're having with people, right? And see if they're either talking about memories or they talking about fantasy. And man, you remember when we used to, boy, let me tell you what happened last week. Or, man, I don't know, next month, I don't know how I'm gonna make this happen. Or, in 5 years, I plan on retiring. Or I noticed that a lot of the conversations I was having was we were discussing memories or we were talking about fantasy. But being able to draw and be focused and be present in the moment lends itself to one of those other markers of being emotionally available, right? If I'm always talking about what was and what ain't, then how am I going to deal with what is? So, a good friend of mine told me recently that you're going to meet people who, been where you were. You're going to meet people that are where you at. And you're going to meet people where you want to be. So being able to stay present and be present, in your own life, to show up for yourself is important. And in the practice of doing those things, you start to develop those markers that I mentioned earlier. One of the cornerstones of mental stamina is, again, emotional resiliency. That's just that ability, being able to handle setbacks and recover quickly from them, whether it be the loss of a loved one, whether it be, the loss of a job, loss of money, so forth and so on. You can go down the list. But being able to, as my mentor would say, get into the solution, to be buoyant, to practice resiliency. In this life, and the Bible tells us that in this life, trouble will come, right? So we know it's coming. So being able to utilize, these 4 markers in your life, if you would just stop, take some time to think about how you're thinking. I know even for myself, I just think. I don't think about how I'm thinking. If you really want to dump somebody up, the next time you see them, instead of asking them how they doing, ask them how they thinking. And most people don't have an answer. They'll jump right into memory or fantasy. So, and this is something that I have to practice as well, because we start to get conditioned to those ways of thinking and those ways of responding, and to really simplify life. And I feel, in order to simplify my thinking at times so that I'm not engaged in those cognitive distortions, I need to back up and slow down and think about how I'm thinking. And we can do these mental health checkups. We can take a look and see, where are we in regards to those 4 emotional markers of mental stamina? Have I been emotionally flexible? Have things come and I couldn't quite handle everything that was coming at me? Or was I defensive? Every time somebody said something to me, or they or I felt challenged or rejected. Having that emotional flexibility is important. What has my emotional responsiveness been like? Have I been engaged with the people in my sphere? Your sphere of influence, I'll say. Mine extends the width of my arms, and I tell people all the time, if it's outside my fingertips, it ain't my problem. And I have to do that because we'll take on everybody's stuff. And our stuff starts to become down the list some, and we start doing for others what they could do for themselves. Like there's a difference between helping someone and sustaining someone, right? If I help you, I'm taking you from one level to another level, right? If I'm sustaining you, it'll disguise itself as help, but you're just doing the same thing, all right? So it's important that, we have to slow down and pay attention to, who we're giving our emotional flexibility away to, or who we're giving our emotional responsiveness to. And emotional strength, that ability to handle like those great emotional impacts that can come our way, but still sustain that fighting spirit, that same verse that I mentioned earlier about, trouble coming. It does say have hope. And that's what that means to me. That emotional strength is that, yes, I have this ability, to take on these great impacts, but I do so with hope, right? It's one of the things I talk to clients about, going back to that word acceptance, that it's not an acceptance like it is what it is. It's not that kind of acceptance. What it is acceptance with hope that it's going to get better. I can accept how things are right now, because that's all I got to do is accept how things are right now. I ain't got to accept how it was back then. Surely doesn't have to accept how it's going to be in the future. I just have to be able to accept the way things are right now. And in that ability to do that, in that practicing of acceptance, it's an acceptance with hope that things will get better. It's an acceptance with hope that things will change. So, emotional flexibility, emotional responsiveness, emotional strength. And lastly, again, emotional resiliency. Like I said, being able to handle setbacks, but, recover quickly. There was a time when, I tease my son sometimes about, not being as forthcoming as he should be with his father, right? And I told him the other day, I said, people lie for two reasons, acceptance or avoidance. Either I want you to like me, or it's something I want to do. And I explained to him, you don't know how many times I lied about taking out the garbage? Only for my mate to get home and realize that I lied. So challenging him just sometimes on some of the things that he says and trying to get him to get into the practice of, understanding like how to utilize and not be afraid of his emotions, not just trying to survive his emotions, but really being able to embrace, dissect, assimilate, and move forward, whatever it is. Hey, just to recap what we talked about, the 4 emotional markers of mental stamina: emotional flexibility, that ability to handle different situations in a balanced and non-defensive manner. There's also emotional responsiveness, that ability to engage in competitive or difficult situations and not be withdrawn, to be emotional available, ladies, that one. Third, emotional strength, the ability to handle great emotional force, but sustain that fighting spirit, no matter the circumstances. So it's that ability to accept things as they come, but accept them with hope, that they will get better. Lastly, emotional resiliency, being able to handle setbacks and recover quickly from them, like that buoy that we mentioned earlier. All right. So I want to thank you all, for watching tonight. Please come back next week. We're going to talk about the fruits of mental stamina next week. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mental Health in the Sacred Sanctuary. It's a lot of words, couldn't get them out. Masterclass. We've been talking about mental stamina. What is it, and how do I get some? Just a brief recap of the first episode, we were talking about the 4 emotional markers of mental stamina. Number 1, emotional flexibility, that ability to handle different situations in a balanced and non-defensive manner. Emotional responsiveness, simply put, being emotionally available for those around us. Number 3, emotional strength, that ability to handle great emotional force, but still sustain that fighting spirit. And lastly, emotional resiliency, being able to handle setbacks, but recover quickly from them. Today, what I would like to talk about are the fruits of mental stamina. As we proceed in this process, there are some things that we gain, that I like to call them the fruit of mental stamina. We know the fruit of the spirit: peace, self-control, kindness, joy, faithfulness, patience. Come on, church. Goodness, greatness, love. Okay. What I'd like to propose, in the fruit of mental stamina, the first is focus. Focus is one of the fruits of mental stamina. Being able to give careful attention to what matters to you, and having that ability to block out distractions. I can't tell you how many times I talk to people who tell me, I just can't focus. Can't focus on nothing. I have so much going through my mind. I can't seem to be able to gather my thoughts. I'll start doing something and then, I lose focus and I end up doing something else and I forget about the thing that I was doing and yada, yada, yada. So, one of the best parts of the work that I do here is seeing individuals, start to grow and exercise, this mental stamina that we're talking about. Especially that fruit of focus, that being able to actually, practice some of one of those markers that I mentioned earlier, having that stamina and being able to engage in a complex problem or issue or situation, and being able to knock out or block out all distractions. The second fruit, and one familiar, is self-control. Being able to remain calm and confident, under pressure. Most people in my life, myself included, I'm all right when the fire, low to mid, but when that fire get turned up on me, I struggle with self-control, meaning that I'm not always as calm and I don't respond effectively to different things that may come my way. I try to stay cool under pressure. Sometimes I don't stay confident under pressure. And those are 2 different things for me. I can be cool, but I'm not always confident. But with the fruits of mental stamina, or with this fruit of mental stamina, self-control allows us to remain calm, to be confident under pressure, knowing that, we're able to engage and practice in this, I'll say, this spiritual principle of acceptance, but acceptance with the hope that things are going to be better. The third fruit of mental stamina, long-suffering, giving that relentless effort for as long as necessary. I know in the biblical sense, long-suffering may simply be termed patience, and y'all help me, I'm not I try to stay in my lane. But long-suffering in a sense where, I can engage again, I can give an effort to get it done, whatever it is, that I have the mental stamina that, I can set, days and times that I'm going to work from here to here, and this is where my focus is going to be. I'm going to engage self-control because I'm going to, resist the urge to do other things. I'm just going to work. I'm not going to check my phone. I ain't going to turn on the TV. Stay focused right here. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to do this for as long as I can. Just simple things like that are you're acting out mental stamina. The fourth one, faithfulness. the ability to respond to adversity, and recover quickly from mistakes and disappointments. With those 4 emotional markers, this one can be termed emotional resiliency. I like to think it can also be attributed to emotional strength. I was looking at some information recently and just wanted to share a little bit about emotional strength, being strong, in the mind. Being strong in the mind is very important to spiritual strength. Although faith is perhaps the engine of the spiritual life, thoughts provide the fuel. What one trusts in the heart must first pass through the mind. So if thinking is sound and focused and in the right place, then stronger faith will likely follow. Also, in talking about building mental toughness, here's some simple ways from a somewhat spiritual perspective to make ourselves mentally tough for the trials and tribulations that may come our way. Number 1, study. If you adhere to a certain set of values or beliefs, spend time daily studying, the literature that reinforces it. I was told once upon a time that, it didn't matter what I believed, I just needed to believe it. But I was given the tools in order, to, in this case, as a practicing Christian, to believe the values that were set aside, for me in the church that I grew up in. The second thing in terms of building mental toughness is to build community. Spend time with others who share your beliefs. This could be in the form of a church or other groups who can reinforce your beliefs and support you in times of need. Third and lastly, live it. Each day, look for ways to live out what you believe. Your actions reinforce your beliefs in a powerful way. Like I shared earlier, all behavior, all movement is perceived in thought. Thought precedes those things. So, look for ways that you can live out what you believe, as you go about your day, in efforts to continue to build this mental stamina and to gain this, for lack of a better term, mental toughness. When it comes to community, sadly, our society sometimes becomes individualistic. Although we're more electronically connected, I text you, I'll hit you up on the gram, Facebook, yada, yada, yada. We're connected electronically. Then we're more connected than ever before. But still, many people report being extremely lonely. Consequently, when trials come, they go at them alone, or they live out loud. In the context of my own faith tradition, I explain to others that, God designed us to be in community. None of us are self-sufficient. We're taught to be self-supportive, but none of us are self-sufficient in this life, I don't believe. To be mentally tough, we need others to remind us and tell me, when I may doubt or perhaps I've forgotten. So I need people in my life that are able to come alongside me when those crises come to remind me of, not only whose I am, but who I am. In my darkest moments, I've had others who, and I thank God for them, who have stepped into my life and surely rescued me from destruction. I could never have survived some of the stuff that I experienced in my life alone, and I thank God for those people. But getting back to our fruits of the Spirit, motivation, and this is a big one. I had a teacher tell me one time that if you wait till you feel like it, when is it going to get done? And if you ever find yourself saying, well, I just don't feel like it, that is one of those cognitive distortions that I like to talk about. It's called emotional reasoning, where we start to reason out of our emotions. anytime you catch yourself, like I said, whether it's, washing dishes, cutting the yard, so forth and so on, picking up the kids, whatever it might be. If you ever catch yourself thinking, man, I really don't feel like it, you are practicing emotional reasoning. But one of the strengths of mental stamina, again, in the fruit, is motivation. We do what needs to be done, even if you don't feel like it. I was always told, just do it and your feelings will catch up. And when we experience it, think about those times when, for those of us or for those of y'all that go to the gym, you may not have felt like going, but once you did, once you finished, you're glad that you went. There have been experiences in my life where I didn't necessarily feel like it, but I had the best experience, in my life, or I had one of the best experiences in my life. The one that comes to mind is being invited to this concert of sorts. I really didn't know what the concert was. Knew it was supposed to be a jazz concert. I got there and it was, wow. I think it was David Sanborn and Marcus Miller and I can't think of my man's name. He plays the keys, but again, being open to those things and doing stuff when you just don't feel like it. Sometimes, there's this energy that brings, some satisfaction to whatever we're doing, and it helps to motivate us to the next thing. To put it very simply, and there have been books written about this, there's been, some other things written. I try to get in the habit, and I do okay, of making my bed, allowing it to be the first task that I do of the day. What it does is it provides motivation for me to move into those other tasks, whether it's getting clothes together, whether it's getting myself together, whether it's, checking emails, returning phone calls, whatever it is. It helps to get my day started, and it provides that motivation, to complete the next task. The next fruit of mental stamina, love. Kindness, being able to recognize and respond to the emotions of others, which plays back to the other emotional marker of emotional responsiveness, being able to be emotionally available for others. If someone needs to, dare I say, vent, or if someone needs a shoulder to cry on, or if someone just needs someone to listen, being able to practice that love and kindness and that ability to recognize and respond to the emotions of others. Next, we have goodness, joy, and peace. I kind of grouped all those together because they all have that positive connotation about it. So having a positive and productive mindset in response to negative situations. And we're going to talk about mindset, in a second here. But being able to have, despite whatever the negative stimuli is, being able to have a positive and productive mindset. I'm involved in a group, and we meet every so often, and we have what's called a group conscience. And in this group conscience, we declared that, God would be reigning and resting in this group conscience. And I realized that I have to be careful about what I'm bringing to the group conscience, because I may not always be bringing the God in me. I might be bringing the mess in me to the group conscience, where we're hoping to be guided by the God in all of us. So, these mental health checkups that I have to do throughout the day, some are spot checks, some that I do at the end of the day. I just really, in all honest truth, I really just try to get through the day, and I ain't got to go back and make amends to nobody. So I ain't said nothing slick, I ain't done nothing wrong, and I got through the day, and I ain't hurt nobody. I didn't make nobody feel some kind of way. Those are successful days to me, and I can lay down, I can lay my head down with a clean conscience. However, in those days that I don't, do so well, maybe I did offend, or maybe I didn't, follow through on something I said that I was going to do. It's important to me that I go back and make some type of amends. because that just builds to the ability, of that mental stamina, because there will be another time where I may have to go back and make an amends. And it also gives me an opportunity to practice, peace. And oftentimes it's not just peace between me and another person, but it's peace in my thinking. I remember a time I was going to a job and had some time. The job was probably about an hour away, and I'm riding, and they had asked me to come down. I had already interviewed. Everything was good to go. And it was like, oh, you got to fill out this application. And I'm like, oh, boy. Okay. Got to fill out this application. Wasn't quite sure, if I should put something on the application. And I'm riding down, I'm driving, I'm going back and forth in my thinking about, should I? Well, they ain't said nothing. I might as well, I can go on and do this and everything will be all right. And a good friend of mine called me, and she simply said to me, do what's ever going to offer you the most freedom. And what she meant was, do whatever is going to offer me the most freedom in my thinking. I think about that so often now because, I still try to practice that. I still try to do those things that are going to offer me freedom in my thinking. Not only freedom, but goodness, joy, peace, love, kindness, all those fruits of the Spirit. Right? There's a term that's been used called faith-driven mental stamina. Sounds like a lot, but can be simplified. It simply starts with knowing and trusting God. Like I shared before, when we're building and becoming emotionally strong, whatever you believe in, believe it. Study, build community around that, and then live it. So knowing and trusting God. This Christian life is a life of faith. It's a life based on trusting the God who created us, who redeemed us, and who calls us into intimate relationship with him. Our strength comes from, knowing God deeply and trusting him completely. Now, I won't say, I can't say that I know him as deep as I should or that I trust him as much as I should. So trust me, there are no absolutes in anything that I'm saying. But there is something, that journey that was discussed in the previous episode, from this day to this day, we do the absolute best we can. And when we can't, we just stay mindful of, we still have work to do. But all of these things, even if we want to term it a negative experience, all of those things pour into us getting better. Like my auntie used to tell me, we learn one or two things. We learn what to do. We learn what not to do. And as I try to simplify my own life and my own thinking, in those ways, I get better. Paul says it in 2 Corinthians 4:7, but we have this treasure in earthen vessels to show that surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. So, I have to remember that, that I'm not always, I don't always have the deciding thought. I may need to check in, spiritually. I may need to check in relationally with someone. I may need to study something. I may need to gather some information so that I can come to, the right conclusion in my own thinking. Furthermore, in Ephesians, Paul goes on and he talks about, that according to the riches of his glory, he may grant you to be strengthened with power through his Spirit and in your inner being. It's that power, going back to being emotionally strong. As we seek, these fruit of mental stamina, there's some work that we have to do. We have to go and we have to read, like I mentioned, we have to study. Most importantly, be in community and live it, which is sometimes the toughest thing for me as well. Mental toughness, y'all, requires active faith. We cannot be passive. Mental toughness does not happen magically because we Christians, and the Lord just doesn't give it to us, so to speak. We must build and develop our resilience and emotional strength. Effort is involved. Relentless effort. Again, this is not, self-help, but In fact, this is an act of faith in response to the Spirit within us and our trust in God's work in our own lives. As we turn and lean into those things, we can begin to build that mental stamina. It is of great significance, that the final fruit of the Spirit listed in Galatians is self-control. If the Spirit works within us, we must put forth great effort, to produce some self-control. If we passively sit back and ask the Lord to just give us self-discipline, it won't happen, in my thinking. On the other hand, if we ignore, what the Spirit is attempting to generate, and to generate that sheer self-control out of sheer, just human grit and human effort, we may never experience the true fruit of the Spirit. One of the things that I also wanted to include in this episode and talk briefly about is mindset. What is your mind, or how do you know you have a set mind? 1 Peter 1:13 says, therefore, prepare your minds for action and be sober-minded. Set your hope fully on the grace that you will be brought to, that will be brought to you, at the revelation of Jesus Christ. So the question is, what is your mindset? The mindset of what needs to be done produces clarity and courage. And, we respond with wisdom and some discipline. The mindset of how do I feel, sometimes fixates on the negative, and it produces anxiety and stress. So what we tend to give our attention to oftentimes can determine how we experience life. I'll share this with you. We exist and live, if you can imagine, in three states. We have a dorsal state, we have a sympathetic state, and we have a ventral state. I've talked about this briefly in the past about our vagus nerve and how it runs through the center of our bodies and how it's responsible for telling all the other nerves to, hey, chill out, we're safe, we're okay. But oftentimes we can go up and down this ladder, this autonomic ladder of experiencing dorsal. Dorsal is when we feel somewhat disconnected, dare I say depressed, we may feel lonely, alone. Sympathetic, right above it, is that state of existence where that's where our energy mobilizes. That's where our fight or flight systems are engaged. And then last, we have, our ventral state. Ventral is where, I feel connected to people, I'm at peace, I have clarity, so forth and so on. So as we go up and down this autonomic ladder, it's important to pay attention to what we're thinking. What is your mindset? As mentioned before, if we have a mindset of, okay, hey, what needs to be done here? That allows and produces some clarity and some courage. And with that, we can respond with some wisdom and discipline. And again, but that other mindset of, well, how do I feel? Well, when we fixate and we concentrate, on our feelings, especially those negative ones, it just produces more anxiety and more stress. So moving on. Again, the question is, what is your mindset? Just because something gets your attention doesn't mean it deserves your attention. So try not to focus on those things that don't deserve your attention. Don't feed your fears. Don't give, the enemy of our lives access to our life. It was shared with me before, how, and I don't want to mess it up, but typically we respond to what we hear, because what we hear, we see. Because if I hear, I'm going to turn, right? So what I hear, I see. So I had to be careful of what I see and what gets my attention, right? Because again, like I said, because something gets my attention doesn't mean that it deserves my attention. Also, we always have a choice regarding what we focus on and what we give our attention to. This kind of lends itself back to focus. which we talked about earlier. It's one of the fruits of mental stamina. We have that choice. And sometimes, as I speak with members and talk to other individuals, we forget that we have a choice. We sometimes get so locked into, and some things have our attention so tough that it's hard for us to remember that we do have a choice. A lot of you, if you were around last year, I did a series on addiction. And I shared, in that series that I'm, a recovering some of everything. I'll put it that way, and have been, for the last almost 17 years. But I remember, in the beginning processes of trying to remain sober, when you're dealing with this obsession, to do something that is killing you, but you're obsessed over doing it, because it's always been your escape route. It's always been the thing that wasn't going to let you down. It's always been the thing that wasn't going to fail you. It's always been the thing that wasn't going to say no. Having that, again, even as it was beating me down, I thank God for November the 11th of 2006, because I got sober on November the 12th of 2006. And just for the day, we remain sober. So, I can't reiterate enough how, we allow our attention, and our focus to be split. And the thing that's, those things that perhaps need our attention, but don't also require all of our focus. I'll say that again. There are some things that need our attention, but they don't necessarily require our focus. So we don't end up spending like quality time and thoughts and energy in places we don't need to be. It may have required my attention, but it didn't necessarily require my focus. Mindset, that's one of the most pivotal things, that lends itself to mental strength. My hopes is that, through the process of, these episodes that, you hear something, you gather some tools, you, hey, repeat some of the stuff that you've heard me say, because I'm definitely repeating it from others. But you start to mold these things over in your thinking, see where you are. You may just need some tweaks in some areas in order to be at a level of mental stamina that works for you. Remember, yours may be different from the next person's, what your so-called level or level of mental stamina, as well as whatever your homeostatic, life is, whatever that sense of balance that you need. I mentioned earlier those three states that we can be in, dorsal, sympathetic, and vagal. One thing I failed to mention is that sometimes those states can blend. For most of us, we need those states to blend. We need to be, let's say, for work, we need the energy in order to do the work. So we will be in a blended state of sympathetic and also ventral. In some cases, we need the blended energies of sympathetic and dorsal, in a sense, where the best example I could give is driving a car, where we want to be settled, focused, right, in a sense, but we need that energy so that we can respond, if we need to change lanes quickly or if we need to brake quickly, so they're not as, as compartmentalized, I guess, as I presented, because they're oftentimes they will blend with each other, and we'll experience those things, again, as far as I know, all behavior is born in thought. So we have to take special care of how we're thinking, in addition to that, being able to increase and develop and practice those things that increase our mental stamina. So I'll be back next week, and we'll talk some more about mental stamina. Hey, go back and watch the previous episode, and join us, for our third episode of Mental Health in the Sanctuary. Mental stamina. What is it and how do I get some? Hello and welcome to another edition of Masterclass. My name is Jorge Walace. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the Office of Christian Care and Counseling here at Alfred Street Baptist Church. We've been talking about mental stamina. Today, and adding to stamina, one of the key pieces is mindset. So my question is, what is your mindset? The mindset of what needs to be done produces clarity and courage, and it responds with wisdom and discipline. Now, in contrast, the mindset of how do I feel kind of fixates on the negative, and it produces anxiety and stress. So if you think about it, we have two mindsets that typically we operate in. Just because something gets your attention, it doesn't necessarily mean it deserves your attention. So when thinking about mindset, those are questions that I try to keep in the forefront of my mind, trying not to focus on things that don't deserve my attention. Don't feed that fear. Don't necessarily give the enemy access, to your life. You always have a choice regarding, what you focus on and what you give your attention to. So I wanted to show today, or talk a little bit about the two mindsets. There's a quote by Dr. Carol S. Dweck that says, "The view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way you lead your life. It can determine whether you become the person you want to be and whether you accomplish the things that you value." Now, that says a lot. One, it tells me that I have choice in the view that I adopt. Typically, we need information in order to make decisions. Well, it's the same with mindset. We need information in order to determine a mindset. So there are two mindsets. There's a fixed mindset, which we all may know people like this who believe that their qualities are like carved in stone. I tell you, with us as black folks, you hear the term, well, that's just how I am. And if you hear that a lot, then those are individuals that typically have fixed mindsets. The second one being the growth mindset. Now, this mindset is based on the belief that your basic qualities are things you can cultivate through work, basically, through efforts, through strategies, and help from others. This is the mindset that I try to encourage the clients that I work with to have, to be open-minded to, trying some things, especially as I tell them, if what you're doing is working for you, keep doing it. Just be honest with yourself when it's not working and be open-minded to some suggestions. And that's part of, that's part of, giving information or transferring information to the client so that, they can begin to cultivate, that mindset and the things that, they need to fixate on versus having a fixed mindset. So with the two halves of the brain, fixed mindset and growth mindset. In a fixed mindset, those people with fixed mindsets, they typically avoid challenges. Typically looking for, the easiest path, the path of least resistance, right? They sometimes may refuse to receive criticism or feedback. We call them sensitive, those people that, I guess we can't tell them nothing. But those individuals with a fixed mindset, they refuse to any criticism or feedback. They're also focused on proving themselves. Those individuals that, I guess we can say they always have something to prove, or they're always, trying to accomplish some challenge, so that they can feel like, they have accomplished something others haven't, right? Because they feel threatened by other successes, because that's also a part of a fixed mindset. Individuals with fixed mindsets, they can't accept failures or mistakes. there's a cognitive distortion that I share with my clients called all or nothing. With that kind of cognitive distortion, what occurs is that the information, as you filter it, whatever it may be, as you filter it, through an all or nothing distortion, the best example would be if I were to go on a diet and for 6 days I'm doing well. I'm dieting, exercising, eating right, all those things. But on that 7th day, I'm a big chocolate cake eater. I like chocolate cake. But on that 7th day, if I have a piece of chocolate cake with an all or nothing attitude, I'll just throw away the diet because, well, I had that piece of cake, so what's the point in dieting now? That is an all or nothing attitude or all or nothing distortion that, finds its home in the fixed mindset. Also, individuals with a fixed mindset, they tend to shy away from unfamiliar things. How many of us know people that just ain't willing to try nothing? They're settled, so to speak, and they only do those things that are familiar to them, that are within their quote unquote comfort zone, right? I had a conversation recently with a family member about, his desire to stay in his hometown. And he's been there all his life, had no plans on going anywhere else. And I can say he has a very fixed mindset. Because they were, talking about me, where I have traveled and moved and lived in different places. And the storyline was, I was never settled. But as we continue to talk, I could see where this cousin, this family member, was so fixed, on the thought that Memphis is the only place that he can be. So I just thought it was interesting. I try not to psychoanalyze my family members, but sometimes when we're sitting down, I can't help it. And lastly, when we're talking about fixed mindsets, they believe that talent is static. That's the word I want to use. They believe that talent, it's either you have it or you don't. Like, you got you're talented in that and I don't have any talents. So yeah, that's the belief that talent is static. Now, opposite of fixed mindset, we have a growth mindset. Again, this is what I try to encourage my clients to think about, to be open-minded, to try different things, maybe think outside of the box a little bit. With a growth mindset, the people with growth mindset, they view challenges as opportunities. I mean, I don't know about you. I fall somewhere between fixed and growth because sometimes I face challenges and I have to do something about it because of necessity. But oftentimes I wish somebody else could do it for me or that it would just work itself out without my effort. But that doesn't really happen. Secondly, with a growth mindset, they embrace, or people with growth mindsets, they embrace constructive feedback or constructive criticism. Again, it's something else that I encourage people to practice, and practice being open-minded. I'll share this with you. We typically don't arrive anywhere. What I mean by that is, when I encourage individuals to practice, a principle of acceptance, what I'm really asking them to do is, as things come up, you can then practice acceptance. We don't land, like no acceptance this day, and then the following day, now I have acceptance. It doesn't quite work like that. So we don't really arrive, at a point where we can, accept that and embrace that constructive feedback. It has to be a practice of acceptance. It has to be a practice of humility. And it has to be a practice of wanting to get better, right? So again, people with growth mindsets, they embrace constructive feedback. Next, people with a growth mindset, they focus on the process, not the end result. I can remember in grad school, as we were all kind of filling around, as new grad school students, the director said to me, and to us, that, she said, I want you guys to enjoy the process and not be so fixated on the fact that, you're trying to get this graduate degree. And I tell people now, to one, trust the process, and two, secondly, enjoy it. So those with growth mindsets, again, they're tend to focus on the process and not necessarily the end result. Something that was shared with me by one of my mentors, he told me, inch by inch, it's a cinch, yard by yard, it's too hard. So what that does is that causes my thought process to stay, in the present and in the process, right? Next, people with growth mindsets, they're inspired by other people's successes. We're often encouraged, to, applaud others and to be, others' cheerleaders. But there's a word, and I'm probably going to mess it up. There's a German word called Schadenfreude. I'll have to, spell it later. But the main definition for it is basically saying is that, those are individuals that feel good about other people's demise. Well, people with a growth mindset are just the opposite. They are inspired by other people's successes because, hey, if they can do it, you can as well. Next, people with growth mindsets, they learn and they grow from failures. Oftentimes when I'm working with clients and we're talking about, let's say, emotional intelligence, or if we're talking about, emotional sobriety, that's another one that we discuss. And those two things, like I share with them, we're not going to always get it right on a daily basis, but if we can get through the day and have not caused anybody any harm, we can, lay our heads down with some clarity and a clear conscience, knowing that, we haven't done anything. But in case, you do slip up, say something, do something, I try to encourage the clients here to learn, to grow from those failures, because with every incident or with every situation, what you create is a reference point in your thinking. So when something comes up again, you can always go back to that reference point and say, hey, I went left that time, but maybe I need to go right this time. I went left and I know what I got, and I didn't like that, so maybe I need to go right, and just see what happens. So again, that is something that, we learn and we practice, because I can't sit here and say, yeah, do this, and all the time you're going to be able to grow and learn from your failures. No, it really is a practice. And true reflection about the things that, you might be experiencing. And like this says, embracing that constructive feedback when you do fail. So every failure is an opportunity to learn. You can learn from what you did right, what you did wrong, what the experience has taught you, how you felt. Those things we can reflect on, and we can create those reference points in our thinking. So as things come up, we can always go back and make a decision based on the information that we have. Now, this one here, the next characteristic of a growth mindset is individuals always step out of their comfort zone. The reason why I hesitate is because, that word always, I tend to believe that there are no absolutes, like always is one of those words. So that being the case, always stepping out of their comfort zone, it depends on who you are. I am one that I don't have a problem, most times stepping out of my comfort zone because it's an experience and I can learn from it. And typically things kind of come back around in my life, So stepping out of my comfort zone, you have to kind of push through the fear. You have to push through the thoughts of, what are people going to say, what they're going to think about me. You really have to push through all of that and step out of your comfort zone and see, you can have these amazing experiences in life when you do so. All right. Lastly, the last characteristic that we're going to talk about today, as far as growth mindset is concerned, they believe that their talent is ever improving, versus the fixed mindset where they believe that the talent is just static. So whatever amount of talent you got, that's the best you're going to get, with the fixed mindset. But with a growth mindset, they believe that their talent is ever improving, whatever it may be. All right. So moving on, we're going to talk a little bit more about, the fixed mindset. I wanted to really give some information regarding these mindsets so that you can make a decision about where you are. I want to talk a little bit more about fixed mindsets. And really, I'm really just wanting to give some information so that you can determine where you are. Which mindset do you typically practice? So people with a fixed mindset believe that talent is enough to lead to success, and any effort to improve these talents, isn't required. One is born with a certain amount of skill and intelligence that, can't be improved upon. I read that and I think about, being a former athlete, we were always looking to improve on our talent, whether it was, dribbling, shooting, thoughts about playing, how we play defense. So reading this, it's like, wow, that wouldn't necessarily have worked in the era and in the, arena where I played. But talent is, a part of individual success, but it's definitely something that I feel, can be improved upon. But like I said, individuals with fixed mindsets, they believe that talent is enough to lead to success, and, any effort to improve these talents, it just isn't required, which I disagree with. I disagree that one is born with a certain amount of skill and intelligence that can't be improved upon. I think we all have the ability, to practice those things, those concepts and skills and strategies in order to get better, not only in how we live, but in how we think, right? Those with a fixed mindset believe that they are either good or bad as something, like based on their inherent nature. Again, going back to what I was saying about individuals that say, well, that's just the way that I am. Those are people that have that fixed mindset, and they are stuck there sometimes. But they believe that they're either good or bad, at something just based on their inherent nature. So you heard some of the stereotypes like, okay, I'm 6'3", I'm an African American. You're an African American, so you must have played basketball. Or you see a big guy, in the streets and people look out, oh, you must have played football. Or you see individuals and you believe that they may be doctors, lawyers, or whatever, but they're not necessarily, we don't necessarily give them qualifications like good or bad. But it's basically, the thought is that, it's in your nature, it's in your DNA, so if you are good and bad, you inherited it, even when it comes to, I'll say children. There's a thought that, I don't believe any child is born bad, but there is a concept out there that believes that through our DNA, that we can inherit, not only certain diseases, but certain attitudes and mindsets. But that's yet to be proven. I am definitely searching and reading information and trying to get a better understanding myself. Lastly, those with fixed mindsets may avoid challenges. They may give up easily and ignore useful negative feedback. Those individuals, I tell you, are hard to work with sometimes. Simply because, if something is too hard, they just give up or they just don't do it. I was working with a client recently that had some issues with her food consumption, right? And the thought was to practice some other things, in order to kind of corral that emotional eating. And he just, told me one day that, hey, I just, something happened. I started to get angry, or I started to feel like, I was out of control is the words that were used. And, food became a comfort for him. So yeah, this gentleman has somewhat of a fixed mindset. But moving on to something more positive. Let's talk about growth mindsets. Now, those growth mindsets, these describe people who believe that their successes depend on time and effort. The more that you practice something, the better that you get. People with a growth mindset feel their skills and intelligence can be improved with effort and persistence. They embrace challenges, they persist through obstacles, they learn from criticism, and they seek out inspiration in other people's successes. Now, that's who I would like to be. Someone that yes, I have a certain set of skills and I have a certain level of intelligence, but it can all be improved upon. If I go back to school, if I do trainings, if I talk to other people, if I ask other individuals who are successful in what I do, what did you do to get to that point? And also, we persist through those obstacles, whatever they may be, and we learn from criticism. We just have to deal with, and for myself, I'll say me, when it comes to criticism, I have to deal with that initial energy that I feel when someone criticizes what I'm doing. Because, if it's my work, I'm a little sensitive about that. And I realize that. So, but when people, offer some criticism, I have to be able to deal with that initial energy that kind of swells up in me. And once I do that, then typically I can respond from a logical place instead of responding from, those instinct or those natural emotions that we all have. Those who hold a growth mindset believe that they can get better. Again, like I said, at something by dedication of time, effort, and energy, right? Working on one's flaws and the process, not the outcome, are the most important components. Let me say that again. Working on one's flaws and the process, not the outcome, is the most important component. So essentially what it's saying here is that, once I've identified a character defect or a shortcoming or, if we want to call it a flaw, the fixation is on the process. Because in the process, we can start to build, and you put those things in place so that we can create, another characteristic, I'll say that, so that we're not so focused or fixated on our flaws. With time and practice, people with a growth mindset believe they can achieve what they want. And that is what I encourage people, to be open-minded, to be curious, not only about themselves, but about life. I'm a big reader. I like to read. I probably got 3 or 4 books in my bag now, simply because, I'm always seeking information and trying to get better at what I do, trying to get better at my craft. So I encourage anyone, if you're stuck or if you're struggling, seek some help. It doesn't necessarily have to be from a therapist like myself, but any close friend that you have, that may be able to offer you, some good advice in figuring out whether you have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Now, once you decide, especially if you have a fixed mindset, the ball's in your court. Again, like I tell people, if what you're doing is working for you, keep doing it. Just be honest with yourself when it's not working anymore and be open-minded to some suggestions. So moving on, I want to talk about, these are the things that come up, in my conversations with different people. And I realize that thoughts and facts are different, right? A thought is just an idea. There's a treatment word, and that's what I call it. When you hear people say, oh, I was triggered, or this happened and I was triggered. My question has always been, what did it trigger? And typically it triggers a thought. And a thought is just an idea, and just because we have a thought, it doesn't make it true. I'll tell you what, I can sometimes have a thought, and because I thought it, I'm right. So I will move out, or my behavior will be one based on, what I'm thinking, which I think is right. And sometimes I've been wrong, and then of course, there was some humility, had to be involved in that. But I understand in myself, just because I'd come up with it or just because I have a thought, it isn't necessarily true. One of the other distortions that I see a lot, with the individuals I work with is mind reading. So mind reading is similar to jumping to conclusions. It's similar to, I can't remember the last one right now, but mind reading is really, let's say, for instance, you walk into a room and everyone looks at you, right? And then the first thought in your mind is, they must think blah, blah, blah. Anytime you catch yourself saying what somebody else may think or what some other organization thinks or anything of that nature, that's engaging in the distortion of mind reading. Okay. I think, it came to mind. The other one is fortune telling. With fortune telling, that's when, we decide what the outcome is going to be based on a small piece of evidence. Sometimes we believe things that are not true. Like I mentioned earlier, I can have a thought in my mind, and because I thought it, I'm right. And so I'll start behaving, based on this thought that I had that I believe is right. And on more than one occasion, I have been wrong. And then as a result, like I said, my behavior has been wrong. And then I've had to come back and make those amends and try to smooth things out. But again, you know what? Sometimes thoughts are partly true and partly false. Typically we have these experiences and, from early childhood all the way through adulthood. So if you can imagine operating on, like a T graph, right? And, this is vertical. So we're up, down, and then you have this horizontal line. We typically deal with the things on that horizontal line based on past experiences, whether it be family, relationships, jobs, we can put ourselves on that line. And we have this bottom-up view of ourselves. So anything that's on that line, we typically deal with that based on past experiences. What I try to encourage people and what I have to remember myself is that as I get on the vertical line, now my perspective changes. Now instead of a bottom-up view, I have a top-down view. And what helps me with that is acceptance, humility. It's those spiritual principles as I practice them that helps me to deal with all those things on that vertical line now. Now with acceptance, I can deal with, family members. With acceptance, I can, deal with relationships. With acceptance, I can deal with issues at work. and they're not necessarily based on past experiences. Now I'm looking through the lens of acceptance, which gives each one, it put in layman terms, it gives each person a blank slate. And I can look at each situation individually and not necessarily based on past events. So lastly here, we got a couple of more slides. But lastly here, rules and deep beliefs can really hook you, right? But not all thoughts have the same strength. Some can be changed with a little effort. Others, like rules or beliefs, they take time and effort to change. And we're going to talk more about beliefs, but definition of rules, we'll start there. Rules are those strong thoughts about how you, others, the world should be. Rules kind of set the stage for our core beliefs, and we're going to get into that in another episode. But those rules, kind of create, again, those thoughts that we have about ourselves, about what others should be, and about what the world should be. They include words like you supposed to, or you should, or you must, or you ought to. So when I find myself using those words, in my lexicon, I have to reflect on, what information am I processing and how and what am I filtering it through. If I am using words, like, well, this should be like that. It shouldn't be like this. Or you should, wear this. You shouldn't wear that. Or you must, help me. Or, as my friend, you ought to. Those are a combination of things I know I've said. And I have to be especially, careful, when I fall into those predicaments. Often we have learned rules from other people. When I'm working with couples, I typically tell them that, when you come into a marriage, you bring everything that you learned, as a child up through your adulthood. So one person is bringing everything that they learned. Another person is bringing everything that they learned. And typically it's from watching our parents. You learn one or two things. You either learn, what you want to do, or you learn what you're not ever going to do. Especially when it thinks about how you may have been raised, and you hear people say, well, I'll never treat my kids like that, or I'll never treat my kids the way I was raised. Those are people that are fixated on the rules. Well, it was good enough for me. It ought to be good enough for you. So next, we're going to talk about beliefs. And we mentioned, beliefs briefly in the last slide. But beliefs are really strong thoughts that are rooted deep inside of us. Again, in the next episode, we're going to talk about those core beliefs that can cause us to have these unhealthy schemas. And we'll definitely go into that. But the beliefs, they tell us how much we value ourselves. They also, most times are positive and are helpful. For example, I mentioned it a while ago, I'm a good parent. That's a belief that I have about myself. So because I have that belief that I'm a good parent, I do those things, that fit the thought that I'm a good parent. But sometimes beliefs are negative and unhelpful, like I'm a bad person. We're all born, I asked this to a doctor once about when babies come out, the first thing they do is a doctor may spank the baby and the baby cries. And my question to the doctor was, why doesn't the baby laugh? And so we had this conversation about how we as individuals are negatively wired from birth. That's kind of how, you think about it with a baby, when they're hungry, they cry. When they're, want to be picked up, they cry. When they, need to be changed, they cry. because of that discomfort. And it's like those are the things that we're functioning in, at that early age, but they start to build up as we get older. And these automatic negative thoughts is what we'll call them. They tend to follow us into adulthood. So sometimes, we have experiences and then the negative thought shows up. That's why we have to practice, and try to move through those obstacles, and create that growth mindset that we talked about earlier. So I really enjoyed, this conversation today, because I think we should talk more about, our mindsets and, how we are viewing things, because they play into how we treat others. So I really appreciate this opportunity to talk with you all. I look forward to our next session. Take care and God bless. Hello and welcome again to another episode of Masterclass. My name is Jorge Walace. I'm the Senior Counselor in the Office of Christian Care and Counseling here at the Alfred Street Baptist Church. Today, I want to talk a little bit about core beliefs. We've been talking about mental stamina all month, and those components of mental stamina, having the ability to be buoyant, like a buoy. If you can imagine a buoy in the water, waves come and sometimes the buoy would be knocked side to side, but it always pops back up. And that's the resilience that we want to build and work on and have in our mindset, which was the second episode that we did when we discussed mindsets. So today, we're going to talk about those core beliefs that we have. So, okay, core beliefs. Our core beliefs are our most deeply held assumptions about ourselves, about the world, and about others. Again, they are our most deeply held assumptions about ourselves, about the world, and about others. They are, I can say, they're the root cause of many of our problems, including those automatic negative thoughts, or those ants, as we call them. Those deep-seated core beliefs, serve as the foundation for those negative thoughts. But their original function, was to help us make sense of our formative experiences as we were, toddlers and adolescents and even teenagers. But those core beliefs can be or can become let's say, unproductive and even harmful later in life as an adult. Now, our core beliefs, what we do with those is we tend to attract the evidence that makes them stronger. It's almost like, I guess the best example I can think of in drawing on some experiences with clients is, having a spouse search the other spouse's phone. So when you start searching the phone, you have a belief that, this person is practicing some infidelity. So everything you see in that phone, you're looking for evidence, or whatever you see in that phone adds to your core belief that this person is doing something wrong. And that's just a raw example of individuals that I've had to work with where that was the case. So again, those core beliefs that we have, we attract the evidence that makes them stronger, and they repel anything that might challenge them. So even though I may bring some information to someone to challenge their core belief, they reject that because they have been attracted to all this other information that kind of feeds their core belief. Again, those core beliefs are formed early in life and are shaped by our upbringing and our experiences. I did not believe, in my 30s, I guess, I did not believe, I had a girlfriend that would say to me, Jorge, you're predisposed to addiction. And I argued that, nah, that's not what it is. It can't be, However, I learned that, yeah, I am predisposed. I come from a family on one side, that has struggled with addiction, alcohol and drug addiction. However, the nuance is that even though all of my siblings and I, may have had issues at one time, we weren't brought up together. So it wasn't a learned behavior. For me, it was something that was inherent and formed in those core beliefs that I had, because I was not, I didn't grow up with my siblings, and I didn't grow up with my mom, and I didn't live in the same house as my dad. So it's all those things that help to shape those core beliefs. And we're going to talk about, there's a name for it actually, and we'll talk about it a little later. So this is the shadow tree. The shadow tree, if you can imagine, a great big oak tree, it has a huge trunk, and it has this vein. Its root system is, going everywhere. This tree has been there, right? Well, if you can imagine the roots of the tree, as they go down into the earth, those are where our core beliefs sit. On the either side, you may have associated memories, experiences, past events, all these things are poured into those roots. And as we go up that bark, or as we go up that trunk, we can see there's an area where we may have, negative vision, or our vision starts to change. I talked a little bit about that before, about our perception. I'll say this, our perception is what we see. However, our perspective is what we think about what we see. So as we're, developing these core beliefs, and as we pass through those associated memories, and we have these experiences, and we, focused on these past events, we do come to those areas in our vision that have a negative charge, or a negative, connotation to them. As you go up the tree, I want you to imagine that the branches of the tree are your emotions, and the leaves and fruit are your outcomes, from those emotions. I mentioned some time ago how we can move out on a flawed thought because I thought it has got to be true, which is not actually the case. But there are oftentimes we can move out on that flawed thought, and our behavior will soon to follow. And typically it's going to be negative, or definitely going to be wrong. So as we pass through this tree, one of the things I had hoped to focus on was the fact that, as this big oak tree, if you can imagine, those roots, they run so very deep, and sometimes that's where our core beliefs sit. Because remember, these are those adaptive formulas that we try to intake and make sense of as we're, toddlers and as we grow up and have all of these formative experiences. Those experiences start to set the foundation for our core beliefs. There's some harmful core beliefs that exist. And I wanted to talk about those, kind of like to get them out the way, right? But some harmful core beliefs, they usually come in the form of, absolutists. Like I mentioned in one of our previous episodes that individuals with a with a growth mindset, they always have these positive charges associated with them. And I struggle with that word always because it's a form of absolutism. And those, like I said, those harmful core beliefs, they kind of lead with that. When people are stuck with statements like, I am bad, or people are scary, and the world is, going to hell. Those statements, usually come from those deep-seated core beliefs, those deep-seated negative core beliefs. We may think that we are bad, that we're evil, that we're losers, that we're not good enough, that we're incompetent, that we're ugly, that we're stupid, rotten at our core, unworthy, undeserving, abnormal, boring, existentially flawed, or unlovable. And all of those things can absolutely be not true. But I'll share with you this. I find myself in that. Actually, one of the core beliefs, that I discovered through some work was that I sometimes feel like I'm not good enough. And it surprised me because, as my therapist and I were working through this, I thought all of my core beliefs, especially about myself, were positive. Only to discover that there are times when I feel like, to my core, that I'm not good enough. And, as I mentioned in a previous session, there's this phenomenon of, being a fraudster. I can't quite think of what we call it, but imposter syndrome, that's the name of it. That's what comes up in my thinking sometimes. And that imposter syndrome is essentially based in that core belief of, I'm not good enough. So kind of moving on, those are the thoughts that we can have about ourselves, right? Now, next, we can also believe that people are bad, they're not to be trusted, they're going to exploit you in some shape, form, or fashion, or they're going to manipulate you. How many people do you know that don't trust anybody? That they sometimes, believe that, everybody's out to get them, or don't go over there because them folks, they just gonna get you. They try to exploit you, or they believe everybody's got a scheme and they're trying to manipulate you. Those are some of those core beliefs, and again, those things are based off of past experiences in our formative years. We also may believe that people, again, like I said before, are bad, not to be trusted, they were trying to exploit you, and also people are manipulative. So there are there are 6 schemas, we'll call them. Now, a schema, essentially, like I said earlier, that these things are based off our earliest experience with our caregivers. We form these fixed beliefs and expectations about how lovable and deserving we are, how safe or dangerous the world is, and how we expect to be treated. Now, there's a psychologist by the name of Jeffrey Young. He and his colleagues came up with these rules for living and views of the world that they call schemas. While not all of the schemas are harmful, those that are overly rigid, self-critical, fear-based, hostile, or negative can interfere with our lives. When these negative schemas are, there's a word, triggered, we may lose touch with the present moment. Instead, we react automatically according to those rules for living that we've grown up with, which are often fear-based, mistrustful, critical, and also extreme. Okay, so now let's talk about some common schemas. Again, those schemas, are those thoughts and attitudes that are created in our formative experience that can set the foundation for some of our deepest core beliefs. One schema is emotional deprivation. With this schema, you believe, or people believe, that other people are capable of or motivated to respond to your emotional needs. I'm sorry, you don't believe, I left that word out. You don't believe that people are capable of or motivated to respond to your emotional needs. It may come in the form of, you hear people say that nobody cares about me. or nobody can love me, like I'm unlovable, right? Those are people that have an emotional deprivation schema. Secondly, with that emotional deprivation, you automatically take care of others or are drawn to partners who are unable to give, like narcissists, while building up resentment and loneliness over time. So I can't tell you how many couples I've worked with that, I used to have this question like, how do you stay married like 30, 40, 50 years and then get a divorce? But I realized, in working with couples that some of these schemas are in place and it causes this disruption, where one person is, unable to kind of feel those emotional needs for the next person. And that goes on for years, right? So, which leads to the next schema, which is self-sacrifice. A self-sacrifice schema is where you feel overly responsible for the well-being of others. You put your own needs aside in order to care for others. And in doing so, you don't give them the opportunity to experience consequences of their actions and change. So an example would be, those individuals that are people pleasers. There are also those individuals that, God, I'm losing the word, but like it says, it's those people that take care of others. You put your needs aside in order to care for other people. And in doing so, you don't allow people to experience, the consequences of their actions. So, enabling, that's the word that I was looking for. So this, that self-sacrifice schema kind of serves as a foundation for people that are enablers. Y'all see it sometimes with parents who may have children that are addicted to alcohol or other substances, and they still allow them to stay in the house because as long as they're in the house, they're not in the street. They still give them money. They still try to provide a place for them so that as long as I have them close, then I know where they are. So a lot of parents that I've worked with this self-sacrifice schema, it's been a challenge to get them to think differently, especially in those situations. Like I tell them, I'm not telling you to disown your child, but I am saying that your child is grown and they need to face the consequences of their own actions. So sometimes, working with individuals with that self-sacrifice schema can be tough, because we're taught, we're almost taught to put our needs aside and put others first, and that's okay in its place, but when you are constantly putting all your needs aside and you're taking care of other people, and you have this self-sacrifice schema, at the end of it, you can start to feel lonely and depressed, Also, it can create some anxiety because I gotta fix it or I gotta do it. Now, I'm a fixer. I say it's because of my occupation. People come to me with problems, and I'm the one, that helps to devise some kind of strategy, to help them with those issues. But I have to remember that applies at work. It doesn't always apply in my personal life. But oftentimes I'm trying to fix things, so I have to be mindful of, hey, am I helping this person or am I just sustaining them? Now, the difference is simply this. If I'm helping you, then that takes you from one level to another level. If I'm sustaining you, then that means that even though I may be doing for you, you kind of stay on this same spot. And that's where those enablers kind of fall on that line, because they have this self-sacrifice schema. All right. Thirdly, The next schema is the vulnerability to harm. Now, with this particular schema, you're not able to trust your successes or your relationships or your financial security or your safety or abilities, believing that they can be taken from you at any moment and you won't be able to cope. I said once before that I have two driving fears, right? It's the fear of losing what I have and the fear of not getting what I want. Better yet, not getting what I demand, right? I have to say that I, kind of practice or live in, this vulnerability to harm schema, because there are times when I can't, I don't trust things because I'm afraid that, something's going to happen and then, that'll go flat and then I'm going to feel some kind of way and I don't want to feel that way. So I just ain't going to do nothing, right? I remember when I graduated from grad school, and my mentor and the program director, Dr. Barbara Parker, we're all lined up getting ready to march out. And she comes down and she hugs everyone. And of course I'm in the back because I'm the tallest. And she grabs me by the shoulders and she hugs me. And then she walked away. And then she turned around on a dime and came back to me and gave me the hook, like, come here. And I kneeled down and she said to me, don't run from your successes. And that has been with me, for the last 15 years since graduating. I think about that all the time because I know that I can, that schema, this vulnerability to harm schema exists in my core beliefs. So I have to remember that. Don't run from your successes. As I think about that, that's the thing that gives me the confidence when sometimes those emotions come up and I'm starting to think, well, I can't really trust this because I don't know something's going to happen. And then, it's going to be, so it's left to me to fix it. So then now I get it in fixing mode, which takes it up to another level. And now, my own anxiety gets involved and it's a mess, then now I got to talk to my own therapist just to try to calm down because I wanted to fix something, right? So our next schema is entitlement. Now this is a good one because how many people know individuals that feel entitled? So with entitlement, you believe that you deserve special treatment or that you have to fulfill every need and desire that you have. You believe that the rules don't apply to you. You experience wants as needs and can get needy and demanding. I know, in the circles I'm in, we tease, or we talk about, let me just keep it real. We talk about other individuals that we feel have an entitlement schema. That things should always go their way and that, they should always get what they want and need. I grew up with one of my best friends. I tease him all the time because he has some entitlement issues, I feel. Especially when it comes to stuff that he wants, So oftentimes we've bumped heads because, I get accused of, again, psychoanalyzing not only my family, but my friends too. And he would often tell me, like, hey, don't put me on the couch. But he's one of those individuals that, as I look at and have known him for some years, my man has an entitlement schema, So moving forward, our next common schema is defectiveness. Now, this is also one that I've had to struggle with. So you feel there is something wrong with you, that you are unlovable, that you're incompetent or bad. You don't trust your own judgment, and you don't feel you deserve good treatment. You are drawn to people or situations in which you are treated badly. Again, with this defectiveness, it kind of goes back to what I shared earlier about that feeling of not being good enough.
like something is wrong, right? I used to think this all the time, that something is wrong with me. When my aunt who raised me and other adults in my life would ask me, like, boy, what's wrong with you? You know, all I could do is shrug my shoulders because I didn't know. I just knew that I felt like I didn't fit. You know, I felt like, you know, at any moment, all of it could be taken away. But with work and like I said, working with my own therapist, I got a chance to see, you know, where that stuff comes from. At 5 years old, I was sent to Memphis, Tennessee, to live with my dad. So I won't say ripped, because that just sounds so harsh, but I was taken away from everything that I knew from 0 to 5 years old, and flown, you know, some halfway across the country to live with people that I had never met, you know, that I didn't know. And now I have this permanent residence there. So at 5, that started to bring up this idea of, well, my mama sent me away, so I must not have been good enough. You know, I must not have been as good as the other 4 kids because she kept them, but she sent me away. And like I said, these are things that, you know, in working with the therapist, that I started to uncover in my own thinking and in those core beliefs that I had established as a young person. And sometimes how that thing can come back and still affect me today, where I may not feel like I'm good enough, you know. So there's work still yet to be done. You know, I think there's work yet to be done in all of us. It's just identifying those areas where you need to do the work. So our next schema, and this is also one that you know, I can say that I practice at times, and that's abandonment. You know, you fear that partners or friends will leave you. I'm gonna stop right there, because listen, I used to go into relationships knowing that we're gonna break up. And if you can imagine, so then I'm 1 foot in and 1 foot out of a relationship, because this thought or this belief that I have is that you're going to leave me, you're going to find somebody better because I'm defective, you know, and that the relationship ain't going to last. So I come into it thinking that, well, you're going to leave too, you know. So we sometimes, or I may sometimes, inhibit myself and avoid showing my true feelings for fear that it's going to cause other people to reject me. So, you know, let me say that again, because that is so true sometimes in my life, that I'll reduce myself so that, you know, and avoid showing my true feelings, because one, I want you to like me, right? And I want you to accept me. But I'll avoid showing my true feelings for fear that it's going to cause you to reject me. One of the things that stuck out to me, you know, in talking about this abandonment schema, is inhibiting myself and not showing my true feelings for fear that it's going to cause you to reject me. So it plays into all the other schemas. So now, you know, I go from abandonment to perhaps self-sacrifice, because now I feel like I'm overly responsible, and I put, you know, all my needs aside, and I don't share my feelings for fear that, hey, this person, if I do, what are they gonna say? You know, and if I do, you know, they're going to reject me. With abandonment schemas, you don't feel that loved ones can tolerate knowing how you really feel or who you really are. I used to think that, you know, as I met people, that in conversation I gave them information about me so they can make an informed decision on whether or not we're going to be friends, whether or not we're going to date, whether or not we're going to work together, you know, whatever the venture might be. But I have that gnawing thing sometimes that says, you know, but I really can't be myself, that I have to be on, right? And I do feel sometimes, and I have felt in the past, that, you know, my loved ones couldn't handle the truth, right? But, we push through, and we learn, I've learned to communicate effectively in a way where, even though I may drift into this abandonment schema, once identified and recognized, we have things in place, I do, to where, I can work myself out of that. This last part of abandonment, alternately, I may get jealous and controlling, which drives others away. I've seen that play out in my life. And like I said, early on, I didn't know, had no idea. So when, people were asking me like, what's wrong? I could not tell them. But yeah, jealousy and controlling was my, those were my calling cards, so to speak, because I would become extremely jealous because I'm already dealing with this fear that it ain't gonna work anyway. So couple that with, the thought that, somebody might take her away. I was a mess in relationships for a long time because of the schemas that I was practicing. So our last two schemas, or I'm sorry, those were the last two, but I want to talk about some ways that schemas can limit our lives and relationships. With those schemas, we behave in ways to maintain them, and that's what I was kind of mentioning, how because of jealousy and because of this fear of losing what I have, right? We would behave in ways that almost fed all of those schemas and really caused arguments in my life because I would act out because I'm trying to, save whatever the relationship may be. Other ways schemas can limit our lives and relationship is we start to interpret our experiences in ways that make them seem true, even if they really aren't. So again, this goes back to, how we process information and what we process that information through. If my thinking is distorted in any kind of way, then it'll lead me right to that negative schema, whichever one it may be. And I can start to interpret things that, simply just weren't true. I remember doing, in the step work that I do, as a recovering alcoholic, there's a step 4 where I have to kind of do a moral and searching, fearless inventory, right? Now, this is really taking a look at myself. And I can remember, having resentments against certain people or institutions, but after I talked about it, only to realize that wasn't even true. It's just something that was formulated in my thinking. So now I've had attitude and I felt a certain way about something based on a false assumption. So I would tell anybody, find someone that you can talk to, that you can truly share with. And that not only that, but that can also give you some good information. Because the other ways that schemas can affect us is that, in those efforts to avoid pain, we restrict our lives, and so we never get to test them out, so to speak, which kind of goes back to one of our previous schemas where, I can't show you my true self because if I do, then you're going to leave me. So if you take that schema, like as mentioned before, coupled with the defectiveness schema, you can start to see how those things play, and connect each other. So just to finish up, I wanted to say that, some of the other ways, or one other way that schemas can limit our lives and relationships is that we sometimes compensate and act in just this rigid and oppositional way that affects the relationship because, I see this a lot. Well, I saw it a lot, I'll say that, when I worked for a state agency and we dealt with individuals that had to be seen because of assaults, mainly assaults against women or, their wives. the domestic violence was my caseload, and I had to work with those DV offenders. That sounds technical, as I said. But anyway, in working with them, I could see where a lot of them had these negative schemas that played out in their marriages. And they were very rigid, with their wives, and they would act, they would be jealous. And, all of those schemas would start to play out. And unfortunately, it ended with them, being physical with their mates. But long story short, I know this is a lot of information, and it is. My hope is that you go back, watch the earlier episodes, eat the meat and spit out the bones, as my folks used to say. You take that stuff that applies to you. What doesn't apply to you, move on to the next thing. So I hope that you have enjoyed, our episodes in discussing mental stamina, also talking about, those core beliefs that we can exhibit in those schemas, that we live in. So if you have any questions or if you need any help, please don't hesitate to reach out to the Office of Christian Care and Counseling. Our email address is pastoralcounseling@alfredstreet.org. I would have to tell you, someone taped this and put it on my laptop so I would never forget that. But I still have to read it. But anyway, again, my name is Jorge Walace. I thank you for your time and your attention. Be blessed.
Welcome to the Alfred Street Baptist Church. Now, here are the upcoming announcements for this week.
We know that these are difficult and challenging times. We invite you to stay connected by participating in our online worship services and remain faithful in your giving online via our Alfred Street website, ASBC app, and on our text messaging system. If you have any questions about giving, please feel free to email our finance department at finance@alfredstreet.org. If you're interested in becoming a member of the historic Alfred Street Baptist Church, please email deacons with an S at alfredstreet.org or complete the membership form on our website or on our ASBC app.
Are you looking for an incredible opportunity to share your musical talents? If so, look no further. Alfred Street Sanctified Symphony Orchestra is thrilled to announce that they are recruiting talented musicians like you to join their harmonious family. They're calling for all musicians to join them every Friday evening from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Send an email to sanctifiedSymphony@alfredstreet.org if interested. They can't wait to welcome you into the Alfred Street Baptist Church Sanctified Symphony Orchestra.
Hey Alfred Street, Versus is back in stock. Our Versus team has been working around the clock to create another batch of our popular Versus Bible-based trivia card game, and they're now available for purchase. That's right, purchase your set of Versus cards today before we sell out again. Visit our website or ASBC app and be the first to get your hands on Versus, a Bible-based trivia game by Alfred Street Baptist Church.
God has great plans for Alfred Street Baptist Church in 2024. We encourage each of you to make a contribution online above and beyond your regular tithes and offering by no later than Sunday, December 31st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's right. In order for your tax-deductible contributions or donations to be included in our Finance Department's 2023 Tax Charitable Contribution Report, one must do the following. Make your donation or contribution online at alfredstreet.org or via our ASBC app or text to give system or our Realm membership giving system by no later than 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, December 31st, 2023. Or you can mail your check or money order to the church directly using our office address, 325 South Patrick Street, Alexandria, Virginia, 22314. All mail donations or contributions must be postmarked by no later than Sunday, December 31st, 2023. Any donations or contributions received on or after January 1st, 2024, regardless if it's online, via the U.S. mail, or during in-person worship experience, will be counted as a 2024 donation, regardless of what date has been placed on your check or money order. Please note that a 2023 date on a check or money order does not make it a 2023 donation. Only checks or money orders mailed to the church directly and postmarked by no later than Sunday, December 31st, 2023, will be counted in our 2023 tax charitable contribution report. Please email finance@alfredstreet.org with any questions or concerns regarding your end-of-year giving. Alfred Street thanks you in advance for your unwavering support and generosity. Alfred Street family and friends, get ready. Seek 2024 is coming. That's right. Beginning January 22nd through February 11th, our own Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley will lead Alfred Street in our annual church-wide corporate fast known as Seek 2024. Seek is a 21-day spiritual fast providing guidance to Christians from all around the world on how to practice self-discipline and to focus their entire attention on God. Again, Seek 2024 will commence on Monday, January 22nd and will end on Saturday, February 11th. Please note that our online registration for Seek will open on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. During this time, participants will be able to choose a physical, social, technological, and/or financial fast. Everyone will have an opportunity to participate in our daily prayers, which will commence on the morning of January 22nd. A devotional journal filled with thought-provoking passages related to Scripture will also be available for download from the ASBC website once Seek 2024 begins. Pastor Wesley will curate a special Seek 2024 music playlist, which will be available to download from our website. And new for 2024, we'll be introducing an exercise component, a prayer walk every Saturday morning at 8 a.m., crossing the Woodrow Wilson Bridge in Alexandria, Virginia. Last year, Seek 2023 attracted nearly 12,000 participants. Remember, everyone who would like to participate in Seek 2024 must register online when registration opens on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. We look forward to connecting with you all through our Seek 2024 fast. On Sunday, December 31st, please join us on New Year's Eve for one of our regular worship experiences at either 8 a.m. or 11 a.m. We invite everyone to join us on Sunday, December 31st, New Year's Eve, for our in-person and live-streamed worship experience starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Doors will open at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. On Monday, January 1st, 2024, New Year's Day, please note that there will be no in-person worship experience. Alfred Street family and friends, we invite you to save the date. Everyone mark your calendars now and make plans to join us in person here at Alfred Street Baptist Church for Seminary Saturdays, happening online and in person every Saturday throughout the month of January in 2024 from 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. noon. Seminary Saturdays are Alfred Street's dynamic weekly Bible study series featuring a different and amazing guest scholar each Saturday who will deliver an insightful and informative lecture. You don't want to miss it. Alfred Street's Office of Christian Care and Counseling, in conjunction with the Health and Well-Being Recovery Ministry, present a bi-weekly peer support session virtually via Zoom. That's every first and third Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Visit our website for the Zoom link information. The Recovery Ministry peer support sessions will provide a safe and confidential environment to confront addictions, compulsive behaviors, and issues that interfere with a renewed relationship with God. Email recovery@alfredstreet.org for details. Calling all parents and guardians of children, youth, and teens. Alfred Street's Children and Youth Ministries are back. We're currently accepting registrations for Kid Street, Crossover, and Higher Ground. Visit our website to register your child or youth today. Alfred Street invites everyone to join the Joyce K. Peterson Handbell Ringers. They are thrilled to announce that their ensemble recruitment is now open. If you have a passion for music and a heart for worship, we invite you to be a part of this harmonious journey. If you can read music and are eager to contribute your talents to a musical ministry that touches souls, this is your moment to shine. For more info and to express your interest, please email handbell@alfredstreet.org.
Alfred Street's Office of Christian Care and Counseling, in conjunction with our Divorce Care Ministry, present their fall sessions virtually every Thursday, starting at 12 p.m. noon through 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. These sessions will continue through December 21st. Email divorcecare@alfredstreet.org.
Our Faye Savage Gun Tutorial Ministry has a new home online. Communicate, learn, and stay informed all in one place. Visit our new webpage and check us out today at alfredstreet.org. Email tutorial@alfredstreet.org for details.
Our Office of Christian Care and Counseling presents our hybrid, the Chronic Pain Support Group, facilitated by Mr. Jorge Walace. This is a weekly support group designed to aid in the recovery needed from the emotional and spiritual debilitation of chronic pain and chronic illness. Recovery is defined as the ability to live peacefully, joyfully, and comfortably with ourselves and others. Chronic Pain Anonymous is a worldwide fellowship of individuals that understand the isolation, fear, and despair many have experienced when living with unpredictable and life-changing chronic illness and chronic pain. This support group will occur every Wednesday through December 20th. Email pastoralcounseling@alfredstreet.org for details.
Our ASBC Village Study Guide is now available on the website to download. Be sure to check out a copy if you want to go deeper with Pastor Wesley's sermon prepared for you by the Villages of Alfred Street team. The guide is available online at alfredstreet.org. We invite everyone to join us for daily prayer call at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. Join us in prayer and praise Monday through Friday only by dialing 425-436-6277, access code 246114 #. Again, that's 425-436-6277, access code 246114 #. Our new prayer line number will accommodate up to 2,000 participants. However, once we reach capacity, we will continue to offer the playback option. Call our playback number anytime after 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time each day, Monday through Friday, and you'll be able to replay the prayer call that you missed. To reach the playback line, please dial 425-436-6278 and enter the access code 246114 #. Please note that this is not a toll-free number, and therefore, depending on your phone carrier, rates may apply. Hey, Alfred Street family and friends. Are you visiting us for the very first time? Or perhaps you're new to Alfred Street and you want to stay connected to us or receive the latest Alfred Street updates via text. If so, all visitors, text the word visitors with an S to our new direct text number, 571-977-4525. That's 571-977-4525.
Also, we invite you to tune in to our Faith Forward weekly radio broadcast featuring Pastor Howard John Wesley every Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Magic 102.3 FM and 92.7 FM for a powerful sermon that will move you forward in your faith.
For more information on these and all the exciting events taking place here at Alfred Street, please log on to alfredstreet.org.